This is Eastman's Elevated Podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Got a brand new Eastmans Elevated for you. So on today's podcast, I have on my friend Mark Livesay. So Mark is an absolute wizard with e-scouting and with hunt planning. And so today we dive into a bunch of it. So there's so many great tidbits, tips, tactics that we use, how to avoid the pressure, zones of pressure, where we find elk, where we find mule deer, tricks on Google Earth, tricks on OnX. And so, man, it just made for an awesome podcast. I'm really pumped to release this to you guys, and it's just perfect timing as we're in late June now, getting into early July, and everybody's getting ready for their hunts. So, yeah, super excited. We'll get this podcast out and rolling here. Just want to thank a couple sponsors. So I want to thank Savage. Savage builds the best out-of-the-box accurate rifles on the planet. So pumped with these rifles. They have a bunch of different models that you can check out. So me and the guys at the office like that 110 Ultralight. I have a rifle built up with it. I mean, had the thing sighted in a handful of shots. It just shoots great MOA, great groups, great long range, gets along with all different ammo types. That 110 Ultralight has an ACU stock and an ACU trigger, so you can adjust the trigger yourself. You can adjust the stock, length of comb, or length of pole, and comb height, which really makes a difference for a good fit on your rifle. So I've been messing with these rifles quite a bit. As I've been shooting, shot a rifle competition, just learning, trying to get familiar so I could do those art games or whatever, and really pumped with this rifle. So check these guys out over at Savage Arms. Also, check out Zamberlan boots. Been so pumped on these boots. I think I put about 40 miles in this past weekend at the Western Hunting Summit. So we did a bunch of miles in them. I really like the Salute. You guys know that I like the hiking shoes. They also make a low-cut boot, super waterproof. Never had a boot keep waterproof as long as these, as they test every individual bootie that goes in each one of their boots. They don't cut any corners as far as craftsmanship, as far as materials. They just build an awesome boot and shoe. So my couple favorites are the Salute, that shoe, also made in a boot, and also the Anabasis. The Anabasis feels more like a trail running shoe. Just awesome stuff by those guys. So if you're in the market for new boots and shoes, make sure to check out Zamberlan. Also, check out Black Ovis. Black Ovis is an internet retail shop. They carry all the top name brands as well as their own name brand. If you guys are looking to pick up a few items before season gets here, check them out, as you can save 10% with the promo code ELEVATED10. Also, check out CamoFire. CamoFire is an app where you can save a pile of money on overstock gear items. There's 80 new hunting deals that come up every 24 hours. Just some great products on there, so you can definitely save some money by checking out that. Just download the app, and the deals will come to you. And with that, just finished up this Western Hunting Summit. That went good. Getting a few days in fishing the salmon fly. We got a big one last night, which was really cool. And I'm a bit exhausted, but no rest for the weary. Just gonna build my training on top of this. Start getting to some scouting trips, and like I say, training's been coming really good. Bo's been shooting really good. Really working on my e-scouting. So that's what today's podcast is all about. So trying to put in, at least 10 to 20 hours in each one of these hunts I have coming up, and have a rock solid hunt plan. And then we'll start to put boots to ground, and then be cutting these legs loose with my bow in my hands before I know it. So super pumped. Make sure to check out everything we're doing at Eastmans. We have the magazines, the Mule Deer Collective, Elk Collective. Again, this is knowledge, and knowledge is power. You can really cut that learning curve, so check that out. You can check out Mark Livesay's course, Tree Line Pursuit, absolute e-scouting wizard. And yeah, the YouTube, we got new episodes coming out there, so check it out at Eastmans Hunting TV on YouTube, and yeah, be some new episodes coming your guys' way, so super excited about that and everything else we have going on over there. So check out the other podcasts I do with Dan Picard, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, Life of a Bow Hunter. Man, just some awesome episodes on that feed. So you got to follow a new feed, subscribe, leave me a review. It really helps me out, and we'll continue to bring you guys great content over there as well. So all right, guys, let's get into this podcast. It's a great one. Mark Livesay from Treeline Pursuits. I'm your host, Brian Barney. Eastman's Elevated. Here we go. Right on. Western Hunting Summit. Little sleep deprived, but all good, huh?
Yeah, you've been I volunteered to do some morning e-scouting sessions so I could avoid your 4 a.m. hike. So, I was MIA for your hikes, but 2 days in a row you got up at 4. Well, actually, you started hiking at 4, right?
3:45 was the alarm.
Man, 6 miles before we even have breakfast, do some breakfast, and then another 5-mile archery shoot 2 days in a row. It's been about 90-ish, 87 to 90. It's been a good event so far. It's only week 1, though.
Mm-hmm.
Week 2 is when the fatigue factor starts to come in. But,
separates the men from the
right.
boys.
It's good training, man. Yeah. It's time to get on. We've been fat and sassy all winter. It's time to get it on. The season's coming, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's it. No, it comes up quick. Yeah, that's the only thing is I had to come in at the end of the e-scouting. I always pick up so many good tips from you, It's like so many things I can implement into my own e-scouting. But, yeah, you just do a great job of articulating it. And you always say it's like, oh, Ryan and Brian, they just do it and don't even know they're doing it.
That's right.
But you're able to put it, like, into words and explain it to guys what they're actually looking for. It's so beneficial.
Well, I'm just slower than other people, Brian. I got to, it's got to be spelled out for me, right? So but it's surprising, how many, 6 summits we've been at together, I think.
Yeah. And
you always come to my sessions, and I'm like, he already knows everything I'm saying. I try to add a few new things every time, but you're always there, and I appreciate it. And I always really I very rarely get to go after you because you're usually the swan song. I get everybody motivated on Sunday and send them on their way, but this year you were before me, which is so awesome because you get them so jazzed up, they're ready to kill stuff, and then I get a very alert, awake audience. Because e-scouting after lunch can be a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I love it. I love doing it. This is our 6th year. This is the archery one. We got rifle next week, and it's a great venue. We had a great time. The course was good. I mean, I don't know. Lampers, he's gotten soft, Brian. I'm just going to say it out loud. Course is pretty damn easy. I mean, did you lose an arrow for the whole weekend?
I didn't lose an arrow.
Did you even miss a
weekend?
target?
No,
okay,
never missed a target.
Come on. Never missed a target. Never hit a limb. Never, the thing was practically paved.
We about killed people in the first couple summits.
Yeah. Well, and then, he had shade trees and soft drinks and sparkling water. It's gone completely soft.
It's one of the things I enjoy about the summit is just hanging out with you and the grief you can give everybody. You just had a quick one as we walked around the corner to Brian Call. It had me laughing. So, no, it's part of the fun. It's just like hanging out with everybody, too.
You got to add a little. That's the only reason he invites me, I think, is for a little bit of comedy relief because he always says, okay, we're going to do this. Lampers always says, yeah, okay, we're going to do this function. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Hey, you think you could introduce it and set it up? I'm like, Lampers, he hates getting up in front. If there's any opportunity he can have to eliminate his gear talk or anything he's talking, it's the first thing off the list.
It's the first thing to get cut.
And, so anyway, but that's I guess maybe that's why it works. It's a good partnership.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's so fun. And e-scouting and these seminars, we can only hit so much. So that's like one of the beautiful things is you've had that Treeline Pursuit going for a long time. Like that's where guys can really dive in depth. Like you make them aware of the features they can use and what they can do, but then when they want to dive further in depth, they can go check out Treeline Pursuits. It's like the best e-scouting course, that one of the only e-scouting courses available, man. It's so in depth.
Well, there's a lot of guys that are going to teach you how to hunt elk. There's Elk Collective. There's Elk 101. There's a couple, not many. There's a few things out there that can help you become a better elk hunter from a tactics, strategy, calling with Elk Academy, Elk Calling Academy. I mean, there's a few things, but what was missing when I started, well, let me back up. The only reason I'm good at East hunting, Brian, the only reason is because for my first 27 years elk hunting, I had to come from Missouri. And if you didn't have it dialed, you just were bumbling around. My first few years, I was like, I was running into elk, and but just not. It was a lot of like looking here, looking there, looking here, and you just had to kiss a lot of frogs to find the right one. And so what I started doing is I'm a tech guy background, so that made sense for me. And so I started looking at every place I encountered elk, every pin that I had dropped. And I started, what is common between all these pins? Is it north face? Is it a bench 3/4 of the way up? Is it drainage with no trail on the bottom? Is it sparse timber? Is it thick timber? If we're finding elk in a meadow, is it on the sparse timber side of the meadow? Is it on the thick timber? If it's a burn, is it on the edge? Is it out in the middle? If it's a beetle kill, is it an early stage or is it a late stage? These are all the complexities that you have to kind of marry to consistently find elk. And what I found out was you never found places that had, I have 12 criteria that I finally have come to, right? 12 things that I'm looking for 12 things. And when I find areas that offer 5 to 6, even 7, I'm like, there is I'm not going to say it's 100%. I'm going to say it's 80 to 90%. Now, it might not be a 400-inch bull. It might not be even a 350, whatever. But there's going to be a high likelihood you're going to run into elk because it has 7 things that I have found over the last 34 years that elk tend to prefer. Mm-hmm. And those 12 features is what I teach in the course. That's the cornerstone of the course. But there's so much more. Like you said, there's motor vehicle road analysis. There's putting together your final hunt plan. There's actually understanding your limitations and how far do you set up your e-scouting. Like, if you can only hike 3 miles, why are you looking at maps that are 8 miles in, right? I used to be bad about it. I'd be like, look at this. There's elk. And then I look, this is 14 miles on a trailhead. And you spend all this time looking at areas you really can't. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't have that problem, but the common folks, there's limitation. And there's nothing wrong with limitations, Brian. Nothing wrong with it. But when you embrace them, work with them, work around them, you have success. But when you try to extend yourself, when you try to do things you can't do, or let's go the other way. If you don't push yourself a little bit, your success is going to be, it's not non-existent, it's limited. And remember, we're talking about, I stole this line from you. You kind of looked into a little more. The average Montana, approximately, is about 6% DIY, non-guided, public land bow hunter is about 6%. And of that 6%, you're in that 6%. Lampers is in that 6%. Sam Davis is in that 6%. And you guys get elk every year, so the 6% is not really 6%, folks. You've got to take once you take out the top 10% of that. I don't know what it is, but I'm guessing it's 3 to 4%. And so, if you want to be a 3 to 4% elk hunter, I said it yesterday, then just keep acting like 3 to 4% elk hunter, and you'll stay right there. But I like to kill elk. I love to kill elk every year, but there's been years I have missed. I know there's not many you've missed, maybe never. But I have missed a couple years, but it's almost always because I kind of was looking for a little bit bigger bull. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a year in the past decade that I didn't have a shot, at full draw, just I'd like to get something a little bigger. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I say that, I'm not a snob when it comes out, well, I've never killed a 350 bull. That's my biggest bull is right close, but not 350, and I want one. But I have a hard time letting out go by. The key is if you can't put yourself in the position where elk are, if you can't find elk, you can't kill elk. You talked about it in your presentation. You can be fit. You can shoot your bow. You can be incredibly fit, the best gear. You've got time galore. You've got everything, except you lack the ability to put yourself where elk want to be. None of it works. Mm-hmm. But the same is true, guys. It's not a one dimension. If you're a great, great, great e-scouter, but you can't hike up the mountain and you can't shoot your freaking bow when the moment of truth comes, that ain't going to work either. So you have to be well balanced. And a lot of guys in triathlon, this is a good example. So I used to race triathlon. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm pretty serious, 15 years. I did 12 Ironmans. I learned something very, very unique when I was doing it. I was a great cyclist. not great, but better cyclist than runner and swimmer. So what did I always want to do when I trained?
Cycle.
I always wanted to go out riding my bike. And when I finally got a real coach, and he says, "You're not riding that bike for a month. Just put the bike away.
Yeah.
You need to get that fat ass of yours out there and start running." Now, I was 170, so I wasn't like huge fat. But 170 is huge triathlete, right? And my marathon time was about 3:30, 3:40. And then all of a sudden, I'm running 2:58s, 2:57s, because I got rid of the bike. So my analogy here is hunters are notoriously bad at this, of working their strengths. They're great shooters. Well, they're in their backyard shooting every day. But maybe they're not fit. And they don't like to be fit, right? Whatever the case may be. Or they don't feel like they're computer literate. Or they feel like they're not very good at computers. So they shy away from the e-scouting. So you have to work to be above that 6%, to be a 50% elk. I think that most elk hunters out there, if you can become a 50% elk hunter, meaning every other year you're killing, you are reached. That's like I believe that's the holy grail of elk hunting, right? And you're not going to kill bull every single year. It's just not going to happen. Archery is just archery. But you work your strengths, and don't stop learning. Every time I come here, I always shoot my bow to get decent. I never shoot it to be great. But man, I've missed a few shots in my career. I haven't drawn at the right time a few times. I drew too early, drew too late, all the stories. And I have a little bit of target panic from time to time. But I'm just not working hard enough at it. I spend freaking too much time e-scouting. So what I'm saying here is do what I say, not what I do. So if you want to be a better elk hunter, work your strengths.
Work your strengths and work your weaknesses.
That's right.
You're only as strong as your weakest link. And so that's exactly right. But the one thing you're extremely good at is being able to go into different habitat and find elk consistently through your e-scouting, through your 12 pillars of e-scouting, the things that you're looking for. And you're not looking for all 12 to line up. But in that, I love how you have factored in hunting pressure and where you're going to focus your energy. And so you love to hunt different places. And so you'll look into these units, you'll break them down, you'll come up with this amazing hunt plan, and then you'll spend the days, but you're not wasting any days. You're not going into these empty areas or going in there and finding out there's an ATV trail that goes right through the middle of it. Like, all of this, all your access points, like you show up and you have your unit memorized like the back of your hand, even though you've never been there. And so you go in and you consistently find elk, and you say there's not a 350 bull in every spot, but you find a lot of 350 bulls. Like where elk are, you find big bulls if you can find elk. And you said it yourself, like the key to killing elk is being into elk. So if you can really highlight this, if you can get better at your e-scouting, if you can spend more time, and it's time that you don't have to spend or waste when you're on the hunt. It's time that you can spend leading up to season to do this investigation, to do the legwork, to know your unit really well. And it's something that really shines with you, and something that guys can learn through your e-course. And every time I sit down, I always say Mark's an absolute wizard at e-scouting. Like, I learn something every time I hear you talk, and so I can pick that up and implement that into my e-scouting. And it's like you say, you never stop learning. You're a student of the game. So I can't stop just with what I know at e-scouting. I gotta continue to progress it, continue to learn, to put myself consistently into animals. But that's what I love about it, man.
Well, and so one of the things, I appreciate that a lot. I mean, I put a lot of work in that. But here's the thing. You said it. I didn't mention this. I'm glad you said this, because like I said, I've been hunting elk. This will be my 34th season. I can't remember. Now, when I first started, I might have a tag or two. But in the past 10, 12, 15 years, I've never had less than 3 elk tags. It's the lowest I've ever had. Now, I've returned a couple of tags, but I've had as many in 5 in one season. Now, that was a terrible year. It was my worst year. I literally had a week to hunt here, a week to hunt there. I was so excited about having 5 tags, but when I got in the middle of it, but remember, all 5 of those tags were brand new spots. I never hunted any of the 5 places I've been. So if you want to kill elk, guys, my strategy is not probably the best. And what I mean by that is I am a new person. I am a bucket list kind of guy. I like new adventures. There's nothing that floats my boat more than driving up to a trailhead with my llamas in the dark and getting out and feeling like I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm going to kill this elk. And I hike in 5 miles and the sun comes up and there they are. And I have no idea. I've never seen this place. That's what I strive. I took a friend of mine. He hunts with me every year. We went in this spot, and probably pretty close one of your spots. And it just had it all. It had it all. And we go in. We're laying in our tent day before opening season, and we literally can't sleep. We're just giggling. There's so many bulls. They are bugling every direction, every drainage, right by the tent. The llamas are barking at them all night. And we're like, this is going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. So we get up the next morning, and I'm an elk caller. I'm trying to adopt your style more now. This year I did spot and stalk more, but I've traditionally been calling an elk dude. I like calling elk. And so we get up and we start doing our normal stuff, and we cannot there's so many bulls that they would be coming. We feel like we were in the right spot. And all of a sudden, another bull would bugle, and they'd divert them. And we're like, whoa. And we're both older. We both can't hear out of one ear. So Joe was we can't tell where these bulls are bugling. I mean, it was a mess. But we had so many bulls. We finally got it done. But so the next year, my friend's like, Mark, I can't wait. Because we left some tankers, right, in this spot. He goes, when are we going this year? I'm like, oh, no, we're not going back there. He goes, what are you talking about? Dude, they're everywhere. I'm like, we got others. I got a list that's a mile long, dude. So he gets so frustrated sometimes. He's hunted with me for 10 years in a row. We've never hunted the same spot again, and we've been in some amazing places. Now, I may come back. My son's 14 now. Mm-hmm. So as he starts to hunt, I'm going to go because the odds are better. Mm-hmm. We're going to revisit some of those haunts, right? But what I was trying to get to in all the years, I think I've been back to the same spot 3 or 4 times, and 2 of those was to take my wife to try to get her a bull on a place I knew where we could be pretty reasonably have a good chance. But that's another reason I think I'm decent at e-scouting, because I am constantly, even today, I develop new spots every single year for 2 or 3 tags a year. Mm-hmm. And now I help a few guys here and there, and Brian Call, he just needs a lot of help. So I'm helping Brian with a spot that I've never been to. I'm going to, hopefully, he'll agree with my analogies. We were looking at it, and we're on the phone on a Zoom call, and we're looking at it. And I'm like, dude, this is it. There's this north-facing bench. It's 3/4 of the ways up. There's no drainage in the bottom. There's a fire edge right there. It looks like on Google Earth, and I look back 3 or 4 images, water is showing up even in the summer. This is a real arid spot. I said, this is it. So he does a scouting trip. He does a boots on the ground. Goes out there and he says, Mark, there were 2 bulls that were, they were close to 400 in there. They were right there. And I'm like, so I'm not too my own horn, but guys, it's not rocket science. It's putting together the pieces of the puzzle. But if you don't know what the pieces look like, we were talking in there, Brian, during my thing, and so many guys archery. Well, I hunt the North Slopes. I hunt North Slopes. I'm like, me too. I like them in archery season, right? Well, what else you look for? Well, that's it. North Slope. I'm like, that's one of the 12. That's one. Now, I like it, but I want to see other factors. I want to see the right edge habitat. I want to see the right slope steepness. I want to see the right bench. I want to see the right bedding zones. I want to see the right pressure. I want to see the right pressure analysis. And when those all start lining up, then the odds start going up, but not just because it's a North Slope. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I love that you have a system, right? And it depends where you're at, right? It's like Southwest Montana, North Slopes are great, right? They have timber, they have shade, it grows nice green grass. Well, you go out to Western Montana, and all of a sudden those North Slopes, there's no feed on them, they're thick timber, it can be downfall stuff, and the South Slopes are the sparsely open slopes, and so the elk can be on that. Or what do you do, like I heard you mention in your seminar, what do you do when the whole unit faces south?
That's even easier.
Yeah.
Guys get worked up about that, right? So I hunted a unit that was, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, almost every dang slope is south, predominantly.
Yep.
So when I was e-scouting it, I'm not fixated on the North Slope, but I was going in there September 6th. It was hot as blue blazes. It was buggy. That's the other thing. It was a little buggy. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but I'm thinking all these things in my head because I know the date. and I know the area. It's semi-arid. I'm like, I need to be looking for these micro norths. What I mean is you got a south-facing drainage. You got this one little spur, but it's got a small little pocket in north. So I identified a bunch of those little places. And, dude, I was running into elk almost like every time on these micros. So what I'm saying is sometimes when you've got a lot of the south, it's easier to find the elk because the north slopes are a little more easier to they're more isolated. But you get a big, giant north running drainage, a north-facing unit that runs predominantly to the north, downhill, it can be a little hard sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the wilderness. Guys I want to go into the wilderness, and I want to hunt elk in the wilderness. Well, me too. I like to hunt. But, guys, the elk in the wilderness can be anywhere. Guys from Oregon always tell me, Mark, there's so many roads. I can't get away from hunters. There's no way to e-scout this. I said, dude, it's the easiest of e-scouting. The more roads, the easier the e-scouting. And everybody looks at me like, what are you talking about? You know exactly where the elk are not going to be. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule, right? But if you draw a circle in a high road unit, if you put a radius around every single dead end, trailhead, campground, takeoff spot, and then you put a 1 mile buffer around every single road, 1 mile's not that far. There's going to be little pockets that are going to be visually. If you try to look at the map without doing that, you'll never pick them up. Now, you, Mike, guys have lots of experience, can kind of do it. But once you put the visual on the map, either on paper or you can do it digital now, and most people think you can't do buffers digitally, but you can, and around trails, all of a sudden, you got this whole unit that's just inside a circle. But there's these little spots here, 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 here. Those are always on my hit list. Because those elk, they can't get away from the pressure, but they get as far from the pressure as they can get. The elk are there. And it's in some ways, now I'm not saying every case, right? But in some ways, high pressure areas are easier to e-scout than low pressure areas. When you got a 50,000 acre wilderness area, those suckers can be anywhere.
Well, and I love that you have a system, right? And I completely agree with you. Like, there's nothing I enjoy more than disappearing in a big wilderness and going and find stupid elk that have never been hunted.
Right.
It's like great, right? But it is so big. And then you've got horse guys that are using the trails, which is part of your zones of pressure that you talk about.
I do.
You know, the trails and getting off trail. But my point is all these guys with horses can get back deep in there and they can set their camps and they can hunt it. The other thing I find is like it's the easiest place for backcountry guys to go. So you get a lot of hardcore hunters in there. You get a lot of backpack hunters that are serious about covering ground. So anybody can look on a map and say, oh, it's wilderness. You can't get rigs in there. I'm going to that spot.
Right.
So very commonly, those are not the best spots to hunt. So I'm like you where I mix and match these high pressure zones and I find the spots like, man, I was hunting a spot last year that's like perfectly described by, your zones of pressure, and there was 4 roads, and it's the biggest chunk of roadless country, accessless country in there, and I called it the middle of the middle, and right in the very middle of that spot is where I found bulls. And the deal is it's like, guys, there was guys that knew about it, but they wouldn't leave the trailhead till first light because they were scared of grizzly bears. Well, I was hiking that thing in the dark, and I'd get in there and just be a rut fest every single day because these high-pressure zones, these elk get pressured somewhere, and elk are where humans are not, And so if you can dial all this in, with your criteria of finding good elk features, but then away from pressure, away from access, and everybody parks at the end of the road. Everybody parks at the trailhead.
Dead ends
everybody leaves.
The magnets.
You don't want to, and like you say, there can be elk around those spots, but those aren't the elk that I'm going to hunt.
Right.
I need to go find some elk that aren't getting pressured or where they're getting pressured too. So in a lot of ways, like the national forest, the state land, the BLM is the new wilderness in today's day and age.
And you can't overlook it. So, it's funny. 2 things I'll say about this. You really bring up some – I love talking to you about this because let's talk about the wilderness. When you're hunting, I don't want to say wilderness. I want to say deep, remote places, right? Where it's pretty roadless. You turn on your Onyx and you turn on your roadless light and you see the purple white spots. Well, those are like beacons. I mean, everybody sees them. Cody Rich and I talk about it all the time. Like those are I'm not saying avoid them, but people see them. And I'm going there because it's roadless. Fine. But here's the deal. This is going to blow people's minds. And I want to see if you agree. This is my theory. Now, this is a pretty new theory. The deeper you go, the closer people are hooked to the trail. The deeper you go into the wilderness, the less likely folks are to leave the trail over a significant, let's call it a quarter-half mile. There's something about the human nature. They're nervous. They're 10 miles in. They just want to know that trail's there. They want to camp on the trail. They want to be able to take the trail back to camp. They grizzly country. For some reason, they've got it in their head that they're not going to get eaten on the trail. Well, I'm here to tell you that grizzlies travel the trails far more than you're going to have more likelihood of running into a grizzly on the trail than you will off trail. Now, black bears, they'll avoid the trail, but grizzlies love trails. And so I have found the further you get, the more you actually have to get off trail. And because guys, they're just got an affinity for the trail. And the deeper you go, the later guys are arriving when they should be getting there. Like you just said, they're not getting to their glassing spots when they should be. They're leaving their glassing spots early. Dude, I can't tell how many times I'm on the hill with a dude, and they're from the Midwest like I was, and we're in Grizz country, and they're like looking at their watch. Hey, it's 5 o'clock. We should start heading for camp. We don't want to be on that trail at dark. I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, no. We sit here till an hour after dark because that's when they're going to start bugling, and we're going to start pinning bulls down for tomorrow. Oh, what? We're going to walk 5 miles in the dark or 3 miles, whatever we're going to do. I'm like, we've got the route on our phone. It's no different than daylight. And he goes, well, I say, dude, grizzlies are 10 times more likely to get you on a trail during the daylight than they are at night. People are afraid of the dark.
Yeah, they are.
And even if they don't admit it, I'm nervous. Everybody's nervous. If you aren't, you're a liar. But you got to learn how to conquer it. You want to be in your place. You want to be in your glassing spot. Joel, I'm going to start using it because he stole my view shed idea for bugling, but the bugle view.
That
right?
was great.
Oh,
yeah.
that's great. It's a good term. The best optimal spot, you can hear bugling. The best optimal spot to glass. The best opportunity to stay after dark and hear them starting to fire up when you haven't heard a thing all day. You got to stay until the last minute and beyond. And, especially in September, you know how it gets. Just like we're here. The sun's up at 5. Sun's going down at 10:30. There's not a lot of time to sleep. And you just got to learn to deal with it. If you're trying to get sleep during elk season, that's decreasing your odds. You take your naps when you can and you catch up when you can. But so the point about the wilderness, and then the last thing I want to say is the outfitters. Like everybody wants to be 10, 12 miles in, right? That's outfitter zone, guys. 10, 12, 15 miles, that's outfitter zone. Now, nothing wrong with that. But if I'm going to go into an outfitter zone, guys, let's be honest. Everybody's like, oh, outfitters, I'm not going in there. Well, hold on. The only reason there's outfitters there is because there's bulls there. You just got to work the system. Outfitters are horse guys. Now, a bunch of outfitters are going to be giving me hate. It's okay. They are lazy. They ride the trails. They bugle from the trails. They very rarely get off the trails until they see an elk and they make a move or whatever, and use that to your advantage. Plan your hunt plan off the trail. Like when I say off, guys, I'm talking half mile. You don't got to go 20 miles off.
Man.
And if you get past 7, my rule of thumb is past 7 or 8, I really want to have key locations to check out during my e-scouting that are not within a half mile of the trail. And if there's an area that has very few trails, I do the same. But if there's a spider web of trails, if there's trails everywhere, I don't get as worried about it because there's a network everywhere. And so there's more options for hunters to go a lot of different directions. So you just kind of have to play the game a little bit there. But, yes, I have this, I think the magic zone is 3 to 8. Is that 3 to 8 range, somewhere in there. It could be a little less, it could be a little more. But that's the magic zone because outfitters don't want to hunt that because the clients think they're getting ripped off if they get off their horse in 5 miles. Big old backpack hunting studs think they're just not achieving what they need to achieve if they hike 4 miles and kill a bull. And the average road hunter's 3 miles is about it. So there's this new buffer zone. It used to be as far as you can go, you never saw a person, but that's changing.
It's changing.
So now this middle zone, this 3 to 8, 4 to 7, whatever, is this zone that is, guys, it's not untouched, but it is It is one of my prime spots I look for.
That's where I've made my living with elk, man. It so is. Yeah, and it's I just love everything you said. It's getting off trail is so important. Trails are the highways of the backcountry.
Use them to get in.
So use them to get in and out, cover some miles, and then look for those drainages that are off those trails. And the other thing I look for is places that horse guys can't get. I look for extreme country. I've got some elk spots. They're not that far back, but the horse guys can't get their horses up and over the top or to these spots. I can get in there. It's not that far back, but I have it all to myself. They can't get stock in there. It's a backpacking only zone. And especially, like we talk elk a bunch. Like you're an elk hunter. It's what you love to do. You also are coming out with the bear course one of these days. I don't know when that thing's ever going to come out, but also like so many of the things you're talking about applies to mule deer and mule deer hunting as well.
The features may not be exactly the same, but a lot of other things are the same.
Yeah.
The technology is the same. The glassing is the same. Lots of things, like you said. So, I'm glad you said that. So I've read about one of the things that I have geeked out on in my years, and Brady Miller is one of the few guys, him and I like totally geek out on habitat and use studies. Mm-hmm. Guys, they didn't write these for hunters, but they are so money. When you can Google search elk management plan, and you can download the Idaho Elk Management Plan, which is about 275 pages of just scientific gobbledygook, but it starts giving you so many gold nuggets, like how active do elk stay in burns and for how many years, and when do they stop using? What slope steepness is preferred? How steep, when it gets to a certain steepness, what's the percentage of use? And that has been the backbone for a lot of my studies for my hunt plans, is like taking data from these studies that were never intended to help hunters. They're more for habitat management, but they're incredibly valuable for hunters. And one of the studies that was done was elk. You mentioned this just a few seconds ago. Elk, when they encounter human pressure, they relocate, like zip codes sometimes. Mm-hmm. Much further than any other ungulate.
100%.
Now, mule deer in this study showed that they, when they get in, this was done in Colorado, where intense pressure areas, mule deer, they move over a basin. They don't move or they become nocturnal, or they move into the timber. But they typically don't want to leave their home range in general. They just work around the pressure, and elk avoid the pressure. And that sounds the same, but it's not. Mm-mm. Do you agree with that?
100%. Last year I chased a 200-inch deer that was no more than a quarter mile from a trail. But you go up this trail and you can't glass that basin unless you walk over just a little bit, and you got to make some effort. And there was 10, 14 bucks that were living in this zone, a 200-incher, a red horn, like hard horn 190, and they were just off the side of the trail. They weren't even that far from the rigs or anything. It wasn't that far of a hike in. Now, I found them all the way from the other side, hiking all the way over some master vantage point, and then had to hike back and drive around and the whole deal. But you're right. They're just in, what the common theme is with the big bulls I've shot, the big bucks I've shot, they're in out-of-the-way spots. And that sounds really simple, but they're just in spots that aren't easy to glass. They aren't easy to get to. They take extra effort. Like, it's just these little things, and you find an out-of-the-way spot. It doesn't have to be 10 miles back. Like, this is, it's a mile and a half from a trail spot, or 2 miles from a trail spot, just barely out of your zone of pressure. And then that trail brings you up the ridge line, and it just takes more effort. You got to hike up and over to see this drainage. Nobody ever looks at it. Everybody hikes by it. Everybody hikes that trail, and there was giant bucks in there.
Well, like, for example, let's give you an example. Let's say we got this big, long, north-south running canyon. North-south running, okay? So there's north-facing, but really, the optimal drains are east-west, because they got giant north-facing slopes. But a pure north, let's just say we're talking about this giant north-facing drainage. It goes back 10 miles, 15 miles. Trail right down the middle, beautiful river, water everywhere, meadows everywhere, and there are these side canyons. But it is freaking brutal, steep mountain goat country for maybe a half a mile, and then it breaks into a beautiful basin, right? That's steep but not outrageous. Guys are hiking by, they're like, I'm not going up that. There's no trail on the map. It looks gnarly, but they haven't studied their maps enough. Well, if they just suffer for a quarter mile, it just boom. You would be shocked. And think about what you're doing. You're heading south. You go up this drainage to the east, and you get in this basin, and now you've got this giant north-facing basin with no trail leading to it that's right off the main trail. So what you do in that situation, a lot of guys, if you're willing to suffer a little bit every day, is put your freaking camp right at the head and as visible as you can make it. So dudes see the tent, and they're like, oh, man, let's keep going. They got this spot.
Yeah.
You're not hunting that spot. You're just stopping them from going up your drainage.
Yep.
I've killed elk like that so many times. And it's not very far. But dudes, they don't want to be off trail in the dark. Mm-hmm. They forget that they can hit track on their app, or they forget that they can whatever, they can use their topo navigator and whatever. It's like they lose their minds. They're like, well, we got to leave. Let's get out of here. We got to hit the trail. Mm-hmm. Now, guys are willing to walk in the dark on a trail, but you just very, very few, the elite of the elite, are willing to go significant mileage in the dark. Do you agree with that?
It's chestnut checkers. I love how you say where you set your camp. You got to camp somewhere, and it's like you're not deterring, you're not saying you can't go up. It's all public ground,
right.
But it's just like I camped here, so then all of a sudden, it's like nobody wants to hunt up there. They got this covered, and after you hike up there, it's not that bad. You find an elk trail, it winds you around, like you find a good track up and through there, and you're right. Those are the gold mines, or those side basins, that hiking off trail, that getting off that main trail. Like it's just the little things that are going to put you into animals. It isn't this huge grand theory of hiking 20 miles to get, because that doesn't separate you from guys anymore. There's horse guys that can get way back there. There's hardcore
llama guys, goat guys.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so funny too. We kind of arrive at some of the same spots. You were talking about being in Corey's spot, and then I remember one year I was hunting a different state, and I got in there and I'd ran into a guy, and he said, oh, I just saw Mark Livesay in here last week. And he said, I know I'm in the right spot now. You're in here. He's in here. And we had never talked. I don't even know if we had the same unit.
That guy messaged me. He said the same. He goes, man, I ran into Brian Barr. I knew I was in the gold. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah. And I killed a good bull out of there, too.
Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
But there was plenty there.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's true. Now, I don't know that I'm hitting all your spots, but it's true. It's funny. Like, I ran into Sam Davis. So Sam Davis he was in my spot. I pull up to my rig.
I ran into Sam in one of my spots too, just so you know, muley spot.
Sam Davis is a spot stealer.
Yeah.
So he knew I had disconnected my llama trailer, and I had my llamas around the trailer, right? And I had taken my truck to kind of glass a few spots, right? So I come back after dark, and there's a rig sitting right in front of my trailer. I'm like, what the freaking hell is going on? Because I'm on a master vantage spot. I camped on the vantage spot so nobody would do it.
Yep.
My same strategy, right?
Very smart.
Well, the dude's setting on I could see him in the dark. It was right at dark. He's setting on my master vantage spot, right where my stealthy hunter glassing pad is. So I pull up, and he stands up, and he starts coming. I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm just like, what the hell? Who does that?
Yeah.
And it's Sam Davis. Hey, Mark, what's happening? I'm like, you little bastard. And but he killed a nice bull.
Yeah.
Now, not in that spot. But, and so I don't know that Sam is the master e-scouter. I know Lampert's is really good. I know you're really good. But I said this before. You guys are finding these primo spots because you have an incredible backlog of situational experience. And the biggest thing is people don't understand this. I made this analogy in the class. Let's use Ryan, for example, just because I know how many days he's on, because his wife complains about it all the time. Lamp 125 days a year in a tent. Guys, if you hunt 10 days a year, you have no chance. You have no chance in your lifetime of getting the experience that he gets. For every 1 year, he gets 10 years of your experience. Don't think that's a negative. Just understand it. And so what does that mean? There's only two ways to get better at elk hunting, in my mind, besides getting fitter and those kind of things. But two ways, and it's experience or in replace of experience. Your only option is education. These podcasts now, like this podcast, I hope people are getting something out of it. And there was no podcast when I started. There's no such thing.
Me neither.
There was no Google. There wasn't even no Google Earth. That's how old I am. I paid $399 for Google Earth in 1999. It was outrageous. And I thought it was the holy grail, and all it did was aerial imagery, right? And at the time. And so you've got all these tools now, so there's no excuse for not educating yourself now as a hunter, as a Western hunter that wants to take their hunting to the next level. There's no excuse. Get all the experience you can. Get all of it, because experience trumps education, right? But you can only get so much experience based on what you're able to do in your life position. You know, I retired 10 years ago. I'd like to say I retired. I didn't really retire, but I kind of stepped back. So I get to spend 100-plus days, and it's really amazing, right? And 40, 50 days bear hunting, 40, 50 days elk and mule deer. I love it. And multiple states. It's just amazing, guys. But I get a lot of at-bats. And if you don't get a lot of at-bats, you supplement the at-bats with technique. Think about a batter. You only go up to the plate so many times. But how many times are they in the batting cage, working on their swing, perfecting the level of their swing, stepping forward? I don't know much about it. All these little, they're educating themselves to be a better hitter. They get 3 at-bats a game. But they spend 50 times more time perfecting their swing than they actually get to do the experience of the swing. And you want to kind of think about like that. Is like, get as much experience as you can get, but use the tools that are available to you. Guys, we spend thousands of dollars to chase elk. Tags are outrageous. Gear's outrageous. Gas is outrageous. The freeze-dried meals are outrageous. Invest a few dollars in a couple of these resources. You know, and I mentioned them earlier. There's not just my stuff. There's lots of things that are really good tools, and if you can just start absorbing them and take little tidbits from here, from there, you're going to be a better elk hunter.
Man, it's so spot on. So the reason I'm the bow hunter I am is the experience I get. Like you say, 10 years experience in 1 year, year after year after year. But where you can bridge the gap is education, like you talk, but it's also, you have 365 days a year. So if you can spend some of these days educating yourself and learning and cutting the learning curve, you're putting that time into that experience. You know, you're cutting the learning curve. You're giving yourself a better chance with the days you do have, just like being in the batting cages. And so, yeah, it's like, and it's tough to get people to take on this education or take it seriously. Like you do really good with tree line pursuits. I work in the elk collective, the mule deer collective. It's tough to get guys to go into this course, but it's 25 years of my experience of everything I've learned of how to hunt mule deer and how to hunt elk. You go through this course. It's a video course. It's easy to go through. But you go through this, you're going to cut 4 or 5 years off your learning curve for so few dollars. And the dollars it costs to do it, I would have done every one of these courses. Like I bought every mule deer hunting book, elk hunting book there was.
And those are expensive.
And I spent so much money. I got a book collection in my closet that's sitting in there. I mean, I soaked in every bit of knowledge I could.
You became a student of the game.
Yeah.
Grabbing your bow, getting fit, and going in the mountains will only get you so far. You know, it was funny. You talked about your hunting partners yesterday, and the two different ones. One was so damn fast, he blew everything out, but he kills a lot, right? And the other one's so damn slow, it's like watching paint dry, right?
Yeah.
And whatever your style, you know, you can be success. But, you know, it's kind of humbling, to be totally honest. I mean, a guy like you that feels like they're getting a couple of – how many tidbits do you have to get out of a $90 or $100 course? If it takes you from a 6% to a 20% or even a 12%, if you went from killing an elk every 10 years to 2 every 5, I mean, what's that worth?
Yeah.
$1,000 a tag, about what you're going to spend nowadays almost every state.
Yeah.
And not only that, you start bringing elk meat home, your wife's a little more agreeable. Everybody's agreeable. And I'm not saying it's going to do it. I'm just saying it's a tool. And the last thing I'll say about that is be careful, guys, about becoming one-dimensional. A lot of guys, they use OnX. They use Go Hunt. They use Spartan Forge. They use Gaia. Maybe they don't even use Google Earth anymore because they like, you know, OnX is good enough. You know, their aerial imagery it's good enough. Go Hunt, it's good enough. Guys, good enough is not going to put you in the top 10% of the 10%. It's not. Good enough will get you on the mountain. It'll get you back to camp. You look at a little aerial photo, but you're not going to see how much use is that trail getting. How many cars are parked there on September 12th every year? You're not going to see, like, is there water in that? Is that a wallow, or what is that? Is that meadow a high moisture meadow or a low moisture meadow? Is that beetle kill? What age is that beetle kill? Is that beetle kill? The image I'm looking at looks like a new beetle kill. It looks like amazing. It's a 23-year-old image that you have no idea how old it is, because none, I'm not bashing them, but none of the hunt applications tell you that date of their image.
Yep.
Why do you think they don't?
Yep.
Because they don't want you to know how old it is. Now, that's not a dig. It's a fact. Google Earth tells you the date. So I'm not saying use Google Earth from everything. I'm saying use multiple tools, because some tools are better than others at certain things. But just the 4 things I just said, absolutely rely on your ability for your best resolution image, the best you can get. Google Earth is the king, guys, all the time, every time, no exception. There is no hunting app on planet Earth right now, at least right now, in most areas. Now, I'm not going to say all. Well, like, for example, Alaska. Google Earth sucks in Alaska. For some reason, their images are low quality, low vis.
It's horrible.
Terrible.
I can't see anything.
Spartan Forge, incredible quality.
Wow.
Go Hunt, incredible quality.
Wow.
Onyx,
Yep.
But the point is, Onyx has so many other tools. If you're gonna, you need a toolbox. We talk about this. When it comes to e-scouting and hunt planning, you need a toolbox. If you're going to work on your car, you're not going to fix everything with a freaking screwdriver. And that's the same thing when it comes to elk. I'm not saying you need 20. I'm not saying you need 30. I broke it down in my class. If you took the time to learn 5 of the apps that I talked about yesterday, I have 5 that I kind of rotate primarily. And 2 of them are not even mobile. They are e-scouting at home only. Google Earth and Caltopo. There are some amazing things in those tools that can be imported and moved around with your hunt apps. But if you take 5 of the tools, there's 7 really, but even 5 is fine. But now when you need to change a tire, you pull out tool A. When you need to change your oil, you pull out tool B. And it depends on where you're going, right? If you're hunting the breaks areas, if you're hunting low country, if you're hunting super steep stuff, if you're hunting more open terrain, if you really need to see detail, like you need to find let's say you're hunting a semi-arid place and you need to identify the most high moisture areas you can. That they're going to be very attracted to elk, right? You can't do it with any available hunting app. Can't be done. Cannot be done. It has to be super high resolution imagery to be able to pick up moisture levels in the grass. And you have to know the date. You have to be able to look at the date and say, oh, that's August. That is August high moisture. There's a good chance that September is still going to be pretty high moisture. You get my point.
Oh, man.
So using those tools, multiple tools, and not becoming a one-dimensional hunter, not just one tool. I feel like there's no Swiss Army knife of e-scouting. There is, and it is good enough. It's good enough. But good enough is what average people do. Good enough. Like go out and running, right? You're running. Mile or 2 is good enough. 4 or 5 miles is what it is not is excellence. But a lot of people do good enough. I'm fit enough to go to the top. Are you fit enough to go to the top 10 days in a row? How many guys go to the top first day and never go back, right? Yep. They've gassed themselves. It's tough. Like the hikes here. You had less people Saturday than Friday.
I had 25%.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, totally.
It was hard.
Yeah, it was harder to wake up the second day.
But hiking at 4 a.m. on day 1, Brian, is good enough.
So
but
true.
day 2 is excellence.
That's right.
Those are the killers.
Yeah. That's why it's always so good to talk to you. Every year you remind me to use more tools, and I'm more like a 3-tool guy. And so I'm going to go home, and I'm going to be using more tools. And I love, like, some of the non-hunter tips that you give me, or the non-hunter apps that you use, and some of the tips that you use in those. Like, that was awesome information. It's tools that, most guys aren't using, but you're gaining so much from using using these different tools. Like when you dive into it, like you say, how many trucks are in the trailhead? And I've been using some of these Google Earth tricks the same as you, as like changing the date, and then in muley country I can see the neon green and see the best feeding features. I can look at those high resolution photos and I can see trails in the high country
going through a saddle or whatever.
Going through steep side hills to bedding country, that aren't cattle, that aren't elk, that are mule deer specific. And then I can tell, oh, there's muleys that live in this place. I can see their trails going across there the same way as you find elk on those high resolution photos at times in parks, or your halo meadows that you talk about with the green halo around the outside. So, you said it yesterday, like you're not just looking at the images, you're looking at the images. Like you are gaining you're gaining so much information from these images, and that's what next level e-scouting's about.
Well, most guys don't get a chance for tons of boots on the ground, and really, I do very few boots on the ground trips because one of the things, it's very limited. You can only cover so much country in a weekend, right? You grab your truck, you run out, you spend gas. Now I get hate mail for this, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you had a weekend, Friday through Sunday, to put boots on the ground, you're going to drive 7-8 hours. You're from you're from somewhere that's not in elk country. You're going to drive 5 or 6 hours. You're going to get to trailhead. You're going to hike around, look for some places to hunt. I know it's going to be not popular. You are 80% better off, I would say, maybe even higher, to spend every moment that you spend on that trip in front of your computer. You're going to get more. You're going to gain more knowledge using that systematic approach that we've been talking about than you ever will hiking around looking. You're going on a trip. You're going to stay on the trails. You're going to hit a few glassing spots, but you're never going to hit a million glassing spots early in the morning and late at night. And where you see elk in June and July are not where they're going to be in September. And maybe you'll find some historical rubbed areas. Maybe you won't. The point is, there's nothing wrong with boots on the ground. If you got time to do it, absolutely do it. Incorporate. You like to run. You like to look at country and run and do, and get out there and do it. But if you only have X amount of time, manage your time. Think about what you guys have no idea what you could accomplish with 10 to 15 to 20 hours of e-scouting. I mean, that sounds like a lot of time, right? You just spent way more time than that on that weekend trip to wherever A, B spot is. You spent way more than 20 hours. You're hiking around for 13, 14, 15 hours a day. If you spent that same 30, 40 hours working through an e-scouting kind of structure, and I don't mean, you just said it, not looking at the maps, but I mean looking at the maps with purpose. What we're doing here is we're trying to teach you how to look at a map with purpose, and you're looking for 12 very specific things. And you're not just looking at the map and saying, well, that looks like elk should be there. Elk, well, that's a beautiful looking meadow. I mean, they should be there. But when you start to look at it with different eyes, like you talked about the halo. I talk to guys all the time like, I never even thought about that. Well, that makes sense. When you hear it, it's like, well, that's stupid. That's obvious. Nobody does it. Because they never thought about it. And they never thought about being able to detect moisture meadow from space. I mean, moisture in a meadow from an aerial image. But it's not terribly hard to do. And but you have to kind of know what you're looking for. You have to have a purpose. You have to have kind of a strategy. And once you get it, then it all starts to come together. And anyway, I love doing it. I get excited about it. I get almost as excited about it as you do when you give your pep talk. I love your pep talks. I always feel like I'm ready. I always feel like a total heel when I get here. You give your pep. I mean, I've been shooting my bow. I haven't shot my bow at all. I mean, it's pathetic. And I usually start my shooting of the year when I show up here at Summits, right, and just get spanked. Like yesterday, I shot terrible on the course. Not terrible, but I mean, I was either yesterday. I said I was either a 12 or the dirt. And that is not going to kill it out. And because let me tell you what's going to happen in the moment of truth with your drilling. It's not going to be the 12. It's going to be the dirt.
It's it's the same for me. It's my goal this year was to e-scout these places harder, and like hearing you talk about it, giving me some more tools. And it's scouting with purpose. It's also, for me, it's taking notes. It does me no good to look at images for 2 hours and then I've got 6 hunts and I don't remember what I saw or where I'm going, or I only remember my A spot. Like for me, it's taking notes of all those things. So when I'm looking at it, jotting it down, that'll go into my hunt plan. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to spend 20 hours on every hunt this season, and I already have a few hours on each hunt that I'm doing. I'm marking the different points that are of interest, and I'm getting after it. And so the beautiful thing is we still have a couple months to prepare.
There's plenty of time.
So that's
why we wanted to do this podcast. So you said, let's get it on. But so, guys, if you're watching this and you're listening to this, this is the time.
Yep.
It's now.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
No, that's great. So if you've got time coming up, do you mind if I mention the elk
No,
tour?
let's talk about it.
Just real quick before we wrap up is, Brian, you and I too. Ryan Lampers hates live events. And he runs the summits. But he's getting better. He's getting better. The first year was like a deer in headlights, right? He's just a reclusive weirdo. He's a freaking granola eating hippie that eats nothing but meat now. But I finally have got him to see the light, and he's becoming more of a mentor now. He's turned the corner. You've done the same. 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have told anybody anything about anything, right? And but we know we got to give back a little bit now than of the sport that we love so much. But anyway, we love the live events, and we did a bear tour this spring. Well, Shields approached us, and now we have this elk tour coming up this year. It's short notice, but it's incredible. Guys, I promise you right now, the price you pay to come, if you feel like you come and you do not get 4 times what you think that ticket was to rent all this, do all the stuff, I'll refund it, no questions asked. I'm that confident in it. We took about half of the e-scouting course. We condensed it down. We put in strategy sessions with Ryan specific, strategy sessions with Brian Call specifically. We put in a complete gear review of every piece of gear that those two use on every single elk hunt, period. And that's all incorporated into this elk tour. It's a day-and-a-half event. It's 15 hours of education and then some other stuff. It's the 13th, 14th of July at the Boise or the Meridian, the new Shields in Idaho.
Okay.
So we're about half sold out at the time of this recording. We can only take 60 spots. It's in the Shields training room, guys. They have got I'm kind of excited. They got the most state-of-the-art training rooms. Multiple screens, multiple project. It's like the e-scouting dream. I would love to turn the lights off in that place, plug my laptop in, and have giant 5 screens and do all my e-scouting. So we're going to teach it in that environment. It's going to be an incredible event, so you're invited. I hope you'll check it out. You can, if you want to find out more about it, what all the content, the schedule's all up at treelineacademy.net, and it's coming up July 13, 14.
Oh, super cool, man! I heard great things about the bear one that you guys put on. The people that went to it, how much they learned. They're killing bears now, and so I think these live events are being this immersive event that you can go to and obtain this knowledge. It's sure to cut your learning curve by years, where you can be more effective.
Some guys like live events versus online. I get it, guys. But one thing about the online stuff, you kind of do it whenever you want. Like you talked about doing the evening, different time. You can make time for it. Committing to a live event, we know it's a little more complicated. You got to travel, you got lodging, you got all the things. It's summertime. But there's something about those live events when you get to ask any question you want to Ryan, to Brian, e-scouting, ask anything you want of me. You get a little bit, you get not only the education, but you get to interact a little bit. And at the summit, some of the most valuable information you get is when you're standing around talking to dudes about X, Y, Z. The presentations are amazing and they're great, but some of the best tidbits are, like yesterday, this guy had the most incredible stabilizer on his bow. It just was so much thought went into this thing. I've never seen one before. I'm hunting with, I'm like, what is that? Tells me, I'm like, I gotta have that. And so, one little thing, right, that I don't know, the way I shot, I need every tool I can get. So, but you know what I'm talking. You just get a few tidbits here and I love rubbing shoulders with these guys. There's nothing I like better than getting in a room with a bunch of Western hunters. And when I'm from Missouri, that didn't happen. When I went to the bar, have a beer, whatever, It's whitetail, what leases they got, how this farmer likes them, and they got permission to hunt this. Killing whitetails in Missouri is who has the best access.
Mm-hmm.
In the West, it's who's the baddest.
Mm-hmm.
It's who's the badasses. Public land, I mean.
Yep.
But that's not the case in Missouri. It's like who has the best access. Anybody can kill a 200-inch buck in Missouri if there's 5 running around a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, I always love it. And anyway, July 13th, 14th, treelineacademy.net. You can check it out.
Yep, Boise, right?
Boise.
Yeah, good for you
guys. It's actually in Meridian, but it's part of Boise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing one this year, elk, so
Just
they got to
one.
come to
So
that one?
Yeah, it's not a test. It's a full program. But our hope is to do a full tour, like Shields, Texas, Shields, Colorado, Shields. So we hope to do a multi-city tour next year. So this is the first test that we're going to run with Shields to see how this incredible partnership we can have with Shields. They have some incredible training rooms. So I don't know if you've ever been to a Shields. You have. I'm sure they put so much into training their staffs on their products, right? Like when you go in and need some help, those people know what they're freaking talking about. And one of the reasons they know is because they put a lot of effort in training. So every one of these stores have built out these really amazing state-of-the-art training facilities. The best projectors, the best screens. Well, what's more perfect for teaching e-scouting than that? And so anyway, I'm really – now Ryan and Brian, they could care less. I mean, they're gonna talk about backpacks and gear, but from an e-scouting perspective, I'm really excited about being able to leverage that technology with it to show what they need to be doing.
It's amazing, and it's right in time for elk season. So, yeah, guys, take advantage of it. Like while you can still get tickets, 30 more spots left, or roughly as the time of this recording.
Right.
So grab some tickets, go see these guys talk live, shake their hands, and good on Shields too. Like getting involved with you guys and putting stuff to further the learning into place, man. It's just absolutely awesome. So I really appreciate you. This is like the best time of year getting to hang out with you.
Well, we haven't done one in a while. It's
it's
been a while, right?
Yeah, no, this is great. No, I really appreciate it, man. It's always fun to hang out.
Thanks,
so,
man.
Talk
Good seeing
soon.
you.
Yeah, you too.
All right, guys. What a great conversation with Mark, man. I always love talking to that guy and listening in on his seminars. So knowledgeable, so great at articulating what he's looking for in e-scouting and finding elk, which we can also apply to mule deer and other hunts that we do. So thanks to him for coming on. Show him some support. If you like the podcast, let him know. And check out everything he's doing and everything I'm doing over at Eastmans. Really appreciate your guys' support on the podcast. It seems like every episode you guys are sharing on social media, and the reviews on iTunes really help me out. Like, all that stuff goes a long ways with me, and so just really appreciate it. Appreciate the community we're building, and I'm just going to continue to try to get these great next level conversations and podcasts to you guys prior to hunting season, during hunting season, and throughout the year. And so, just really appreciate you guys. And met a bunch of you guys at Western Hunting Summit, which was nice. Guys that are listening to the podcast, that are enjoying it, telling me the episodes that they like and what they get out of the podcast. And so just means the world to me. So just want to continue to work hard for you guys. So make sure to go check out our sponsors for today's show. So we have Savage Rifles, Zamberlin Boots, Black Ovis, and Camo Fire. And, check out everything we're doing at Eastmans there. Got that other podcast with Dan Picard. And, we can... sorry, lost my train of thought here. Check out the other podcast I do with Dan Picard, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, Life of a Bow Hunter, Life of a Podcaster. I'm about delusional right now. I'm just been working so hard here, and good miles, and a bit worn out, but that's all right. I'll rest when I'm dead. So keep getting after it here. Salmon flies are coming off, so get a couple weeks of good fishing in here, and keep training hard, getting in good summer runs, trying to get in those at high elevation, and season's coming. It's going to be here before we know it. The 4th is almost here, and after the 4th, it just smokes by. So, getting ready for that. I've got a trip to Hawaii coming up for mouflon and axis deer. Couldn't be more excited to go hang out with my buddies there, chase those things around, and after that will be antelope, and it's going to be a good year and a good fall, so super pumped. All right, guys. With that, we'll wrap it up. I'll check in with you guys next week.